You know this stuff's recorded, right?
I do.
Have you reached out to the law school?
I haven't.
Well, will you think about doing that?
I'm gonna do it. It's just I got a lot of stuff going on.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Now, I want to take you guys through 100 phone calls from the jailhouse between Alec Murdoch and his favorite son, Buster. But in order to get to that, I want to also deal with the context. Let's go back into the context for when these calls came about. So, by June 2022, no one had been charged with the murders of Paul and Maggie Murdoch, right? Bear in mind, the murders happened 7th June 2021. So a year passes and there are 0 charges. And the man who would ultimately be convicted of these crimes, well, he was being housed at the Alvin S. Glen Detention Center. Maggie and Paul's killer was incarcerated there since October 2021, which was about 3 to 4 months after the murders. And obviously, he was incarcerated to begin with for fraud and financial crimes, not double homicide. So, as I say, context in this case is huge. And so the context in terms of the murders of June 7th is important to be clear about. If we go to a Fitz News article, I'll put a link to that in the description. They say, quote, "At the time of their deaths, Alec Murdoch and other members of their family were the focus of an obstruction of justice investigation by the state grand jury into actions they and members of law enforcement allegedly took to muddy the waters in the aftermath of the 2019 boat crash involving Paul." Now, what I think is very interesting to consider is that if Paul and Maggie weren't murdered, if they didn't die, what would have actually happened in terms of that lawsuit? Well, the lawsuit actually blamed not only the Murdochs, but a chain of convenience stores, right? But then it's not only just one person in the Murdoch family, it was actually Alec Murdoch, also Paul's brother, Buster. Buster was also part of this lawsuit. And then also Paul's grandfather, Randolph Murdoch III. And he was originally a defendant in the suit, but it was dropped because he died of cancer. But the point is, you actually had 3 Murdochs listed: Alex, Richard, and then Randolph Murdoch III. And I think one's got to consider, what is this obstruction of justice thing feel like and look like, right? What does it actually, how does it play out in practice? And the article then makes a really kind of big statement. It refers to the quote-unquote inelegant words of more than one source that he is a giant shit stain on this state's legal profession, end quote. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. To the thousands of you who have subscribed, welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. I'm going to be doing a follow-up on this episode dealing with some of those calls in a lot more detail. So this is really a primer for that. Also, in terms of Team Petrie, if you haven't subscribed to that, it's a sort of a alternative channel to this one that is just more affirming stories. Please subscribe. In terms of this episode, if you're enjoying it, please like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. Now, who do you think that is a reference to? And what does that ultimately mean? Like, what are we talking about that when you have that stain, what is actually going on there? And so I want to talk about that in a separate episode. We'll deal with that in detail, but I also want to deal with it contextually. What are we dealing with in terms of that shit stain? Like, where is it coming from? What psychology gives rise to it? And so the article refers to what I refer to as the regular people ruse. According to the article, quote, "The Murdoch family built their legacy on the notion that they are different. This brand of different, which ironically is not unique to them in South Carolina, it has meant, think about these 4 things: special access to influential people, secondly, special flexibility with the rules, thirdly, special expectations of favor, consequence, and payback, and fourthly, special consideration from friends, neighbors, law enforcement, the courts, the juries, insurance adjusters, the local bank, business owners, and all manner of institution. And I think this is really well written by the reporter for Fitz News, just trying to explain how different the Murdoch family were in terms of their expectations of how they should be treated. And then what does that lead to ultimately? The article goes on to note that, quote, the expectation of specialness is so long-standing that it has become an evolutionary trait for a certain class of families in South Carolina. It is a part of them in the way of and this is the sort of example given by the writer, of a specifically inherited nose. It's so plainly dominating their face, yet they do not and perhaps cannot see beyond it, end quote. And so it's kind of referring to this thing of innate privilege, something that is just par for the course, and it's so innate that you can't actually see it. You can't really see the privileged woods for the privileged trees. And as I mentioned earlier, so we are aware of this thing, we are aware that it exists, and then the question is, what does it actually look and feel and sound like in practice? What are we actually talking about? And then the article refers to how this is evident. The specialness comes through in the jailhouse phone calls between Alec Murdoch and his son Buster, within the context of their quest to get Buster readmitted to the University of South Carolina Law School. And someone made a really good point that it's interesting that there were all these efforts, all of these machinations to get Buster into the University of South Carolina Law School, but no other law school, just that one. And I think you've got to kind of wonder why that is. Why do they specifically want him in that one? And I think there's an answer to that. The other thing is, it wasn't just trying to get Buster readmitted, but importantly, readmitted on his terms, on Alec Murdoch's terms, right? To give you an idea of what comes through in the Jailhouse Recordings, one example is that Alec says to his sister-in-law Liz, I think it's Maggie's sister, he says, I never had $7 million. You know this thing about how rich we are and how powerful we are, and I mean, it's just, taken a life of its own. I wish it was half true, right? And so that is what he says. And according to the article, quote, this lament was one that Alec Murdoch, the fourth generation of an especially connected family of Hampton County attorneys and the 14th Circuit prosecutors, he made this lament more than a few times during the phone calls to family members between October 2021 and February 2022. And you kind of got to wonder, how do you not see the way that you want this special treatment? And so the other thing that I think is worth noting is the amazing thing is that the fourth in line, right, was also the first in line not to become the 14th Circuit Special Prosecutor. The fourth in line was obviously Alec Murdoch, right? He was the fourth in line. He was also the first not to become this Special Prosecutor. And at least the fourth in line did become a lawyer, but you could see things already unraveling. He became a lawyer, but he became a crooked lawyer at that. And then the fifth in line, his son Buster, well, he hasn't managed, at least thus far, to become much more than a crooked law student, in the sense that he was caught cheating at law school. How is the story going to end? Is he going to end up back at law school? Is he going to end up with a law degree? But do you see, you've got 3 generations of special prosecutor. All of that influence basically ran out in, to quote the article, a giant shit stain. Right, all of these sort of crime scenes, and then also what happened in the boat incident. All of these, all of this damage to the fabric of society, so that by the time Buster went to law school, you get the idea that this influence had basically run out. It had basically run its course. It had basically unraveled. I suppose you could also ask, has it or hasn't it? Is the story still evolving? Is the story over?
But maybe I was born to be a regular person and have a regular life.
So in this article by Fitz News, there's a reference to this quote-unquote idea that anyone would think of the Murdoch family as being anything other than average folk. This idea that it seems to offend Alec Murdoch and also his brothers, right? Now, we remember in the Good Morning America show that Randy Murdoch actually took exception with this, where he said, this is a quote from that show, he said, "You see words like dynasty used and power, and I don't know exactly how people use those words, but we're just regular people." And he said that with his brother John sitting right beside him. And then John went onto the stand and said the same thing. But the article goes on to assert what we know so well, that the Murdochs are not regular people. It notes, for example, that for decades their currency in South Carolina has been their last name and what it could do for them. And so that is really the question. Okay, so yes, that's true, but what does that look and feel like? The article also notes that from a young age, Alec Murdoch's, well, that's according to those who knew him personally, was eminently aware of what it meant to be a Murdoch in South Carolina. That he was especially liberal about spending that cachet. And then it refers to more than 100 jailhouse calls reviewed by Fitz News, and that incarceration didn't seem to have changed this idea of spending that cachet of influence. And again, so the question is, what does that actually look and feel like? And that is exactly what we're going to deal with and try to answer in the next episode. We're going to be playing those calls and seeing how they tried to influence certain things around getting Buster back into college. We're also going to get a better sense of the dynamic between father and son, between Alec and Buster Murdoch. So I hope you'll tune in for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.